The streets of Moscow, 1924. Vladimir Lenin is dead, and a power vacuum threatens to tear apart the young Soviet Union. From this chaos emerges a man from Georgia, Joseph Stalin, whose iron grip would transform a nation and leave an indelible mark on human history. Stalin's legacy begins with an ambitious vision: to drag a predominantly agricultural society into the industrial age within a single decade. The five-year plans launched in 1928 saw the rise of massive factories, hydroelectric dams, and steel mills. Cities sprouted from the frozen earth of Siberia. The Soviet Union's industrial output increased by 400% by the end of the 1930s. But the cost of this transformation was staggering. Stalin's forced collectivization of agriculture stripped millions of peasants of their land, destroying centuries-old farming traditions. The wealthy peasant class, known as kulaks, was effectively eliminated through deportation, imprisonment, and execution. Nowhere was this more devastating than in Ukraine, where Stalin's policies led to the Holodomor, a man-made famine that killed an estimated 3.9 million people between 1932 and 1933. Farmers watched helplessly as Soviet authorities confiscated their grain, leaving entire villages. Yet as the 1930s progressed, Stalin's industrialization would prove crucial for what was to come. When Nazi Germany invaded in 1941, the Soviet Union's industrial base, though built on the bones of millions, helped produce the tanks, planes, and weapons that would eventually defeat Hitler's Wehrmacht. The Great Patriotic War, as Russians call World War II, became a central pillar of Stalin's legacy. To starve. The Soviet victory, achieved at the cost of 27 million Soviet lives, transformed the USSR into a global superpower and expanded its control across Eastern Europe. But behind the facade of military triumph lay a regime built on terror. The Great Purge of 1936-1938 saw the elimination of virtually anyone Stalin perceived as a threat. Old Bolsheviks, military officers, intellectuals, artists, no one was safe. The infamous show trials presented confessions extracted through torture, while the NKVD secret police carried out hundreds of thousands. The Gulag system, a network of forced labor camps, became an economy within an economy. Historians estimate that some 18 million people passed through these camps during Stalin's reign, with around 1.6 million dying within their walls. Thousands of executions. The prisoners built cities, mined gold, and cut timber in conditions that many wouldn't survive. Stalin's influence extended far beyond politics and economics. He created a cult of personality that permeated every aspect of Soviet life. Art, literature, and science had to conform to party doctrine. The concept of socialist realism demanded that all cultural production serve the state's interests. Education was transformed. Literacy rates soared as the regime implemented universal education, but textbooks were rewritten to glorify Stalin and the party. Scientific research flourished in areas deemed useful to the state, while fields like genetics were suppressed for ideological reasons. By the time of Stalin's death in 1953, the Soviet Union had emerged as one of two global superpowers. The country had nuclear weapons, a space program in development, and control over half of Europe. But the human cost was almost beyond comprehension. Estimates suggest that between 20 and 30 million people died as a result of Stalin's policies. Today, Stalin's legacy remains deeply contentious. In modern Russia, opinion polls show a complex relationship with his memory. While some remember him as a great leader who industrialized the nation and led it to victory in World War II, others see him as one of history's greatest criminals. In former Soviet states, particularly Ukraine and the Baltic nations, Stalin is largely remembered as a tyrant whose policies led to mass death and cultural destruction. Yet his shadow looms large over these nations' histories and continues to influence their politics and national identity. The physical legacy of Stalinism remains visible in the architecture of post-Soviet cities, from Moscow's Seven Sisters skyscrapers to countless factory towns built during industrialization. These structures stand as concrete reminders of an era that transformed the largest country on Earth. Perhaps most significantly, Stalin's legacy can be seen in the political structures and behaviors that survived him. The centralization of power, the use of state security services to control opposition, and the manipulation of information, these patterns have echoed through subsequent decades. Joseph Stalin's legacy is a complex tapestry of industrialization and devastation, of victory and terror, of progress and human suffering on an unprecedented scale. He transformed a largely agricultural society into an industrial superpower, but did so through methods that caused millions of deaths. He led his country to victory over Nazi Germany, but used that triumph to establish a repressive empire. He modernized education and industry while simultaneously destroying intellectual and cultural freedom. Understanding Stalin's legacy isn't just about understanding the past. It's about recognizing how the actions of leaders can reshape societies for generations to come, and acknowledging that the price of progress cannot be measured solely in economic terms. As we continue to grapple with questions of development, authority, and human rights in the modern world, the lessons of Stalin's era remain painfully relevant. The story of Joseph Stalin reminds us that history is rarely simple, that progress often comes at a terrible cost, and that the consequences of a leader's decisions can echo long after they're gone. In the end, his legacy serves as both a testament to human achievement and a warning about the dangers of unchecked power and the sacrifice of human dignity in the name of progress.